Hello everyone, I'm Alex Dykes, and today we're in Newberg, Oregon, taking a look at the all-new for 2014 Acura MDX. This is a luxury 7-seat SUV going head-to-head with things like the BMW X5 and of course the Audi Q7. Let's hop in, let's walk around and take a look. Under the hood we have an all-new 3.5-liter direct injection V6 replacing the outgoing 3.7-liter engine. It produces 290 horsepower and 267 pound-feet of torque, and that sends power to either the front wheels only or to all four wheels via an Acura 6-speed automatic transmission. We have 245 55 R19s all the way around, although Acura claims that rolling resistance is down 20% over last year's model. Of course, the interior of the MDX has been completely redesigned for 2014, and the interior style is instantly recognizable as an Acura. If we move across, you can see that we still have fake wood going on here, unlike some of the competition that uses real wood, most notably the Germans as well as the Infiniti JX. We have an all-new steering wheel design as well. This side over here is audio and phone controls. We have our volume up and down. We have our mute button, our source button over here. On this side, we have our cruise control buttons. We have our radar cruise control, and this is our lane keeping assistance system. We have an all-new instrument cluster as well with a full color LCD going on in the middle, our speedometer, our tachometer, of course, and our temperature and fuel gauges on the side. We have our stereotypical Acura red power button here. Of course, we have a tilt telescoping steering wheel that is available as a heated option in every MDX model. Working our way down the center console, you can see we have our dual screen arrangement there, our dual zone climate control, our infotainment control knob, DVD slot for the rear seat entertainment system. We have our little cubby here with the power outlet. We have the shifter, the IDS control button. This controls your throttle as well as the effort required on your steering. And in the center console, you can see we have a very large and very deep multi-tiered center console going on here. Under that armrest, we have a storage cubby that's suitable for phones. We lift that up. You can see we have a cover that slides to cover this very large center console. Now this is available because, of course, this is a front-wheel drive biased vehicle, which means the transmission is up there underneath the engine rather than right here between the seats like it would be in something like an X5. Front seat comfort in the MDX is excellent for 2014. These seats have improved over last year's model in terms of comfort as well as articulation. So we have a little bit more range of motion going on in these seats than we had before, although the passenger seat still doesn't have the same range of motion as the driver. We also get adjustable lumbar support. It's optional for the front passenger in the vehicle. We have a tilt telescoping steering wheel with a decent range of motion as well. Now these seats don't contort in the same number of million different directions as the BMW X5 with the sport seats, of course, but in this segment these are among the most comfortable seats that I've tested so far. The MDX has always been an interesting vehicle because it's a 7-seat SUV, but it's not a full-size SUV, so it's still a mid-size SUV, and that means that we have relatively small seats in the back and, of course, a much smaller cargo area than you'd find in a full-size 7-seat SUV. These middle seats are quite comfortable, and this year we get a reclining second-row seat. Even though that third-row seat isn't very large, it is a lot easier to get in and out of it with an electronic actuating middle seat, which allows easier entry into that third-row seat. Once you're back here, you can see it is a little bit cramped. I'm 6 feet tall, and my head is touching the ceiling in this emergency back seat, but it's a great place to stuff your mother-in-law. This camera angle ought to give you a better idea of what the rear seat in the MDX is like. Again, my knees are about 7 to 8 inches up off this bottom seat cushion, which means it's going to be very tiring for adults on long car trips. You could put kids back here for a decent amount of time, though. The MDX is wide enough, even though it's getting a little bit narrower in this generation, to put 2 passengers in the back without really brushing elbows. Compared to the Infiniti JX or the now renamed Q50, we do have a bit more visibility back here between these rear headrests. That's great for the driver. The third row and the second row now fold almost completely flat with one another. It's a decent change from the last version of the MDX, allowing you to easily put larger cargo and slide it all the way into the MDX. The MDX lacks the panoramic moonroof that's available in a number of the competition, but we do get this extremely wide aspect ratio rear seat entertainment system. It's all controlled by this detachable remote that comes down from the ceiling like this, and it has its own 2 integrated speakers to give the middle passengers slightly better audio. You can also use the IR headphones that are easily tucked away right there in the seat back. And then if we look down here in the center console, you can see we get the 3-zone climate control. Our particular MDX has the optional heated rear seats. We also get an HDMI input right here, along with your regular composite video input. We also have wired headphone jacks here and an AC power outlet available as part of a package in the MDX. The cargo area in the 2014 MDX is larger than last generation's MDX, and it is a little bit more usefully shaped as well. You can now fit larger items between these third-row seat backs and the glass in the MDX. We score 6 out of 10 points in our exclusive trunk comfort index because although this area is fairly nicely done and we do have an electric power tailgate, it's just not as big as some of the competition. All models of the 2014 MDX have this dual screen layout for their infotainment and navigation system. Now, navigation is not an option, it's standard in all 2014 MDX models, and if you don't care about infotainment or navigation, then just follow the instructions down there below and skip ahead to the drive section. Button minimalization is what this screen is all about. Acura has long been accused of having way too many buttons on the dashboard, and they've concentrated their climate control and infotainment buttons into this touchscreen. Now, we still have this multi-way toggle control stick here, and above this screen we have a single slot CD player. Down below the toggle control we have the DVD player for the rear seat entertainment system. Let's go over this screen first. This touchscreen is where you can change audio sources. We have AM, FM, XM satellite, of course that single slot CD player, the rear DVD, we have an internal hard drive for storing music, we have a USB interface, and we have the USB iPod interface as well that uses your regular old Apple cable for your iDevice. Over here we have Bluetooth streaming audio, we have that rear video input, the rear HDMI input, Pandora, AHA, and auxiliary. Now, unlike some other infotainment systems, this setup does not require you to have a specific app, although there is an AcuraLink app for your iOS device. You don't have to have that to use Pandora. All you have to have is the Pandora app. One quirk that I find with this system, if we go over to the iPod interface here, you can see that right here we have our album information. We have the particular track here, and then we have a More button. You might think that More would be to try and navigate around your device, but that's not it. You can use this button here and you can move through various albums on your iDevice or your USB device. Same interface is used for both. But you can't just search for something on your device. You can go forward, backward tracks with that. Now that's what that upper screen is for. So if you want to browse playlists or actually interact with playlists on your device, you have to use this upper screen in order to do that. The one nice feature, however, is that unlike other systems, Honda systems allow you to directly navigate your music on your iDevice right here, as you can see. So you can actually browse your playlist while it's connected to this system. It doesn't lock you out like certain other products do. Down here at the bottom we have our climate control information, so you can see it gives you a little red or blue indicator there when you go up and down temperatures. Over here is where we control our heated or cooled seats. There's also an auto mode which automatically turns on your heated or cooled seat with the climate control. Now if your climate control is in auto, you cannot independently turn on or off your heated or cooled seats. They're only linked with that auto mode. You can also control mode manually. You have your air conditioning sync, you have your fan control, your recirculation, rear seat climate control, which is an option in the MDX. Our model has it, of course, can be controlled that way. And of course, the heated and cooled seats are available for the passenger as well. Middle seat can get an optional heated seat, but the cooled seat is an option package in the MDX. The 8-inch navigation display screen higher up in the dash operates very much the way it used to. So we have our navigation, we have our phone interface, we have our info interface here where we have trip, computer information, AcuraLink messages, etc. You can also see traffic incidents. We have the front audio control here, and this is where you would actually browse playlists rather than using that touchscreen. So here you can actually select artists, albums, playlists, genres, etc. from your USB device or your iPod. You can also click and control the rear audio system using the same control screen and of course that same joystick knob in the dash. The navigation system has also been improved for 2014. Although it looks very similar to the last generation MDX system, this system now includes local street traffic information. So if you're in an area, as you can see here over on this little side of the display here, if we move across, you can see that this is a local street, even though it is labeled Oregon 219. This is just a small street, and we do have traffic information displayed on this screen as well. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but it is green on that screen. And the previous generation product and most entries in this segment only display traffic information at the freeway level. This system should be very familiar to you if you've used any Honda or Acura products in the past. We have this large screen up here for the navigation, and that can always display navigation while you're doing something with your audio system down here on this touchscreen. The only problem with that is that they didn't go that extra step further and actually allow you to change playlists, artists, genres, etc. on this touchscreen here. Although I do like the fact that they allow you to browse those playlists directly on your USB or your iDevice. Out on the road, the acceleration from the MDX is about the same as it was from last year, and that's because despite the slight power reduction, weight is way down in this model. It's about 250 pounds lighter than last year's model, which is a significant improvement when you consider that this vehicle is longer and has a longer wheelbase than the outgoing MDX. That light curb weight and an all-new for 2014 front-wheel drive only model of the MDX really pay dividends when it comes to the fuel economy. We get 28 miles per gallon on the highway in that new two-wheel drive model, we're told, which is a 6 mile per gallon improvement over the old MDX. That's also 1 mile per gallon better than the all-new QX60 hybrid, which is essentially the J35 hybrid. Infiniti has been renaming their models, and the JX35 crossover, which is a 7-seat crossover, has now been relabeled the QX50. and that's a decent amount better than the QX50 with its 3.5 liter V6 and the CVT, and again, as I said, 1 mile per gallon on the highway better than the QX60 hybrid. The QX60 hybrid will, however, get 25 miles per gallon in the city, and that's a decent amount better than this MDX. Acura puts a heavy emphasis on the driving dynamics of the MDX, and that's no different for this new 2014 model. Acura claims, of course, they tested it at the Nürburgring and it was faster on the Nürburgring than the old MDX model. Not that that really matters to most buyers, but what might surprise you about the all-wheel drive MDX is that they've deliberately tuned it to try and compensate for the front-heavy nature of this vehicle. This is, again, a front-wheel drive biased vehicle by nature. Of course, we have the engine up there, it's transversely mounted, and it uses Honda and Acura's regular old 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, in order to try and compensate for that front-wheel drive nature, what they've done is they've added their super handling all-wheel drive system. Now, unlike the all-wheel drive systems available from Volvo, from Cadillac, from Lincoln, and pretty much everybody else, this system actually can send more power to the rear wheels than those other systems. And what it does to do that is it uses something called an acceleration device. And all that really means is that the axle ratio in the back is different than the axle ratio in the front. So that means that if it's locked together, then the rear wheels are actually spinning slightly faster than the front wheels. And that means that you actually send more power to the back than to the front. That's very unique in this segment. In addition, this system can also shuttle power left to right across that rear axle. The car can also send power left to right across the front, but it uses the brakes to do that. Also, what they've done for this model is they've gone for a different stability control system that's completely active and acts even system that's completely out of danger of, you running into a tree or a pole. So when you're entering a corner, the system starts to activate and it brakes specific wheels to help the car feel more settled, more composed in the corner. And it feels very good, actually. It works very, very well in this vehicle. It's not just accelerating out of the corner, which has always been something that super handling all-wheel drive has done for you. This is different. This actually makes your in-corner feel and entering the corner feel improved versus something like a Volvo XC90, which is front-heavy and doesn't have any of these newer electronic gadgets to improve handling. Acura hasn't announced pricing for the 2014 MDX yet, so stay tuned. We're just going to post a little note right here in this video and just in the YouTube feed, and of course right here across the video with that pricing information when that comes out. But Acura has told us to expect the two-wheel drive MDX for 2014 to start slightly less than the current MDX, and of course the MDX once completely optioned out to top over slightly above the current MDX, which is quite logical when you think about it. There are a decent number of new electronic goodies available in this car, from the new lane departure prevention and lane departure warning system. Of course, we have the pre-collision braking system available in this car. We have improved sound options. We have a standard subwoofer. We have standard active noise cancellation. We have thicker glass, thicker windows to improve the noise isolation in this car. That brings us neatly to competition. Of course, we have that JX35, which of course has just been renamed the QX60. And in competition, I find the JX35's interior to be a nicer place to spend my time. It definitely has a more luxurious feel than this car. Of course, it has real wood, and that's not something that you get at any price in the Acura MDX. I think that's largely because Infiniti has a nicer parts bin to pull from. Things like the QX56, I should say, and the M56X are a decent amount more expensive than anything in the Acura brand lineup, and so they're just nicer parts that they have the ability to pull from, whereas these parts are shared with some of the less expensive Acura models in the market. On the flip side, the JX35 is nowhere near as fun to drive as this car. The CVT just sucks a little bit of fun out of the car. The driving dynamics just aren't there. It doesn't handle as well as this car. It's a little bit louder out on the road, and there's definitely a power deficit when you compare it to this all-new 2014 MDX. There's also the Lexus RX 350, of course, but I don't really consider that true competition because, of course, it's not a 7-seater. It only has 5 seats there. However, we've been told that because these are sort of the emergency seats, that a decent number of cross-shops occur between the RX as well as this MDX. In that lineup, the RX is just a lot softer. I don't like the way that it drives. I think that its interior, like the Infiniti, is a bit nicer than this MDX, even in this redesigned model, and even considering the RX's interior isn't exactly a spring chicken, but the driving dynamics just aren't there. The RX is definitely a front-heavy car. It plows when you enter a corner, even in all-wheel drive mode, doesn't have the sophisticated electronics or that all-wheel drive system that's able to send more power to the rear. So out on the road, this is an awful lot more fun to drive, and you get those extra seats in the back. The Audi Q7 is possibly more natural competition for this, although the Q7 is a little bit larger. It's also considerably heavier, so before you get swayed by that twin-turbo V6 available in the Audi Q7, keep in mind it's almost 1,000 pounds heavier than the Acura MDX. We of course have the Buick Enclave, which delivers a lot more value compared to this MDX. It's a decent amount cheaper even in its current guise. We expect that to continue with the new model, so you might want to check out that Enclave. It's not going to be quite as much fun to drive as the MDX, again because we don't have the fancy electronics trying to compensate for that front-heavy nature, but still, GM's new front-wheel drive platforms and their crossovers do handle very well. They have very good feel, they handle very well out on the road, and of course you have that value proposition from Buick. In my area of the country, the majority of the X5 purchases are the twin-turbo V8 X5, and those just can't compete with the Acura MDX. They're just a lot faster. They have a strong rear-wheel drive bias in the vehicle. They handle a lot better than the MDX. They are considerably more expensive, however, and that is something that you'd expect from BMW. So on that front, you can call the MDX value proposition to that, but it's more apples and oranges in my mind. We have a lot more comfortable seats going on in the X5. They're a great deal more comfortable, more adjustable than this car. They have that sport bucket, which allows you to adjust the contour of the seat back angle. We have power thigh extenders. We have anti-fatigue seats. We have a wider variety of electronic gadgets and goodies going on in the X5 as well. But again, you do pay for it, so that X5 is going to be quite a bit more expensive. We of course have that Volvo XC90, and that XC90 does sell in very small numbers, but I'm including it in this video mostly because XC90 shoppers might want to consider something like this MDX. And I do like Volvo models, but I have to admit that the XC90 is getting really long in the tooth, and it's something that should have been replaced a long time ago. Volvo's chosen to really hobble the engine options in the XC90. There's no more V8 model available. We have a front-wheel drive model available, much like this one, but the fuel economy just isn't as good. There isn't quite as much room as some of these modern SUVs either. The MDX just seems to be an all-around better value than that XC90. Until final pricing information is released closer to the July availability date of the MDX at your local dealer, it's difficult to have a final opinion on the MDX. I do like the way that this car drives much better than the JX or the QX60 or whatever it is that Infiniti is going to call that car, but I don't find the interior to be quite as nice as that JX interior. This car is a little bit smaller than the Audi Q7. It's not quite as nice on the inside either, and of course doesn't have that same brand recognition that Audi gets either. But it is a better value proposition as long as the pricing stays fairly in line with the current model. Compared to the Lexus RX 350, this is an excellent option. I would rather have this than the RX 350. It's just a nicer model all the way around. And while that RX hybrid does get excellent fuel economy, 28 miles per gallon on the highway is very good for any crossover vehicle. And in real world situations, I wouldn't expect that RX 450h to get that much better fuel economy than this MDX. That's been our quick look at the 2014 Acura MDX. Of course, be sure to check back with us when we get our hands on one for a full week so we can tell you what it's like to live with, how the real-world fuel economy is, and of course, details on those pricing and some better comparisons with those pricing numbers involved. In the meantime, just go ahead and click that subscribe button down there at the bottom of the video. Go ahead and follow us here. Comment in the comment section. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like about this review, what you want us to check out next. And of course, your opinions are always welcome, and we try and reply to those comments whenever possible. You can also click on over to thetruthaboutcars.com and check out the full written review of this car.